Boy, this is a dream come true. A part-time Church of Christ preacher and a politician with a microphone and a group full of people. It's great to be here. I'm glad to be here. It's good to see y'all. And it just makes me realize how very blessed we are to live and be able to raise our children in San Angelo, Texas. We are truly blessed. I would like to introduce my colleagues here that's with me today. We have Johnny Silvas, representing District Number 3 on the City Council. Marty Self is here. He represents District 2. And we have Don Vardaman, that represents District 4. Glad to see you guys. And just a word to Howard College. Jamie and I both got on the council in 203 at the same time. You better listen to her because I still have bruises on my left leg. So, congratulations, Jamie. It is my purpose here today not to speak, but my purpose is to introduce Daniel Valenzuela, who is our city manager. He is very qualified. He is very capable. He's done a tremendous job. I am very proud of Daniel Valenzuela. And at this time, I would like to ask Daniel to come to the microphone to give his speech, and then I'm still around. If there's questions when we get through, I'll try and take the embarrassing ones to keep them off of him. So, Mr. Valenzuela.
I was here before you half a year ago. I can't believe it's been that long. It's gone by so fast. I recently had a staff member ask me, so are you happy you took this job? I answered, I've yet to cry myself to sleep. Yet, right? But the thing is that San Angelo truly is a blessed community. God has blessed it and continues to bless this community. And I feel so fortunate to be a servant to the fighting citizens of this community also. I have quite a few things to discuss, so I'll get rolling here. Challenges and opportunities are often one and the same. The subtle seam that separates challenge from opportunity and opportunity from challenge is attitude. Distinguishing between threat and fortuity truly boils down to a simple matter of perspective. We either wring our hands and fret over the trials, tribulations, or we rub our palms together and we count our blessings. The wonderful thing about attitude is that it is one factor, and sometimes the one factor, over which we hold total control. Yes, San Angelo has a 16-month supply of water and is enduring the most terrible drought the region has seen in some 60 years. We can't make it rain. But we can employ ingenuity, creativity, and commitment to ensure our community doesn't face this threat in the next 60 years. Yes, San Angelo is staring at an oil boom whose impact, if we let it, could very easily overwhelm us. A cynic would say the Klein Shell will swamp us with needs our community can't possibly accommodate. The opportunist counters that the oil field will bring San Angelo jobs and prosperity, the likes of which some of our citizens have never known. Not only that, but the economic impact could allow us to meet the added needs and to meaningfully invest in our community's infrastructure. And yes, it's true that even in these flush economic times, the needs always outstrip the money. That doesn't make municipal government any different than any of your organizations. But it does offer us a fortuitous circumstance to be bold, to torpedo the paradigms, and to blaze trails that depart from business as usual. So I stand before you today and confidently assert this. The state of our city is strong and continues growing stronger. I arrived here as your city manager 10 months ago, feeling blessed. I feel that even more so today. I am part of a team that includes a passionate and committed city council, a talented and dedicated staff of public servants, and a community of proud and resilient citizens. So, when my staff and I, regardless of whether they work in building permits, in parks, or in economic development, look at the landscape, we don't tend to see threats. We see opportunity. There's no challenge that can't be resolved with some foresight, some creative and strategic planning. and some steady hands working in concert. I've already mentioned the top two issues facing our community. They're hardly state secrets. Rarely does a day go by that I'm not worried about one or both of them. One, what are we doing about water? And two, how will the oil boom impact San Angelo? The questions themselves reveal some degree of worriment within our community, and even in some quarters of City Hall. But again, I submit to you that both those situations serve up sterling opportunities to better and to bolster the state of our city. And not just for the foreseeable future, but well beyond the far horizons in ways that will benefit our children and our children's children. Let's talk first about where we've been and then where we're headed with each issue. Let's begin with water. As you all know, the city is building an infrastructure that will allow up to 9 million gallons per day to be pumped 62 miles from the Hickory Aquifer to a new groundwater treatment facility adjacent to our current water treatment plant. Amid all the debates on the project's merits and timing, what you may not know is how a multitude of city leaders over a span of decades concluded the Hickory Aquifer was the best available groundwater option for supplementing our surface water supply. The city of San Angelo purchased water rights to the Hickory Aquifer in the early 1970s. You may ask yourself, why 40 years are we now just barely tapping into this water supply? The answer is elementary. We didn't need it back then. Until recently, San Angelo's population and its usage were adequately served by Ivy and Twin Buttes reservoirs and also Lake Nasworthy. And so the financial investment necessary to build a vast infrastructure and bring the Hickory's water to San Angelo could not be justified. By the early 2000s, as our surface water supplies continued to dwindle, identifying and developing an additional water source was a fast rising priority among city staff and our elected leadership. Among the first decisions made was to target a groundwater supply that would help diversify the city's water sources. Key to that decision was the fact that evaporation does not rob an aquifer of the water as it does lakes. During the summertime, as much water vanishes into thin air as flows through the tens of thousands of spigots throughout the city. In 2005, two potential groundwater sources were selected for more in-depth analysis: brackish water near San Angelo and the Hickory Aquifer. Exploratory wells were drilled in two brackish water aquifers, the White Horse Aquifer near Mertzen and the Clear Fork near Knickerbocker. The White Horse yielded less than 5 gallons per minute, and the highly saline water was of very poor quality. The Clear Fork produced water at a higher rate of about 50 to 75 gallons per minute, but that's inadequate to serve a municipal water supply. The Clear Fork's water also contained total dissolved solids of about 7,000 to 8,000 parts per million in the upper part of the aquifer's formation, although some parts had dissolved solids 8 times greater than that. Additionally, the Clear Fork's water contained radionuclides of approximately 40 picocuries per liter. By comparison, that's about 15% more than we have in the water from the Hickory. Based on these results, the city's Water Advisory Board unanimously concluded these brackish aquifers were inadequate to meet our water quantity requirements for municipal supply. That decision was also influenced by the cost required to treat those dissolved solids and the limited options to disposing of the byproducts of the treatment process, those being the saline water and the radionuclides. That brought the city back to considering the Hickory Aquifer near Melvin in McCulloch County. San Angelo already had a permit for the Hickory Underground Water District to drill, develop, produce, and export water from the aquifer. The permit was the result of a court settlement that laid out how much water San Angelo could access annually from that aquifer and allowed the city to quote-unquote bank water it did not use. San Angelo already knew the Hickory would outperform either the White Horse or the Clear Fork. The city drilled 9 wells into the aquifer when it acquired its rights, and found the wells could produce 500 gallons per minute. That's 10 times more than the Clear Fork and 100 times more than the White Horse. And the water's quality is generally good. With total dissolved solids of about 500 parts per million, it has only 1/13 of the mineral content of the Clear Fork. The only drawback of the Hickory water is that it contains 35 picocuries per liter of radium, a naturally occurring radionuclide commonly found in granite formations such as the Hickory. Because that is about 7 times more than is allowed by the Environmental Protection Agency, the Hickory water will require additional treatment, which is necessitating the new groundwater treatment facility. Currently, San Angelo is banking 2,750 acre-feet of water per year from the Hickory. To give you a point of comparison, San Angelo uses approximately 9 million gallons per day during the wintertime when few people water their lawns or their landscapes. When the amount of water that has been banked to date, San Angelo could theoretically meet the base daily needs for 5 continual years if no other water sources were available to us. Beginning in 2026, San Angelo's annual allocation increases to 9 million gallons per day. The annual allocation increases for the last time to 10.7 million gallons per day by 2036. At that point, water can no longer be banked. When I joined the city last October, the city council gave me clear and concrete marching orders, bringing the Hickory Aquifer online as quickly as possible. I am happy to report the project is on track to come fully online by next fall. Much of the credit for that can be attributed to the yeoman's work of men such as Ricky Dixon and Kevin Kruger, of our engineers at Carollo, and also those contractors that assisted us along the way. As I mentioned, at the moment, San Angelo has about a 16-month supply of lake water. I want to be clear. That's a worst-case scenario that assumes we receive no rainfall or runoff into our reservoirs during that span. While that's unlikely, we must be prepared for that worst-case scenario. If all goes according to plan, the groundwater treatment facility will come online by September of 2014. Thus far, work on the Hickory has progressed smoothly, especially given the effort's size and its complexity. The 62-mile pipeline, which is capable of carrying in excess of 11 million gallons per day, is complete and has been successfully pressure tested. The booster pump station, which will pump water to Eden, where it will then flow downhill to San Angelo, is nearly complete. The contract to build the groundwater treatment facility was approved by the City Council on July the 16th. Just last week, the Council approved expanding the project from the initial 9 wells to 15 wells. The expansion will allow us to access up to 9 million gallons per day. Again, enough to meet San Angelo's base water needs. We previously hadn't expected to drill those extra wells until 2026. All along the way, the Texas Water Development Board has blessed this project. First, by granting the city a low-interest loan to finance the construction, then by reviewing and approving each step of the project. In doing so, the Water Development Board has ensured that the public is best served and the board's funds are properly and efficiently used. The best evidence of the latter is that each stage of the project has come in under the initial cost estimates. As an example, the groundwater treatment facility was projected to cost around $29 million. The low bid, however, came in at $27.1 million, which is almost $2 million below projections. We were even able to afford to drill extra wells as opposed to the initial estimate of 5. Because bids for that phase were more than $1 million lower than anticipated. The sum total of those savings is allowing the expansion of the project, which was best summed up by Russell Gully. Russell is a local engineer and a member of the city's Water Advisory Board, which unanimously supported the expansion. In voting for the expansion, Russell noted that San Angelo is gaining access to 50% more water, 9 million gallons per day as opposed to 6 million gallons per day, for the same amount of money, which is the initial $120 million. There remains one last phase of the project to address, and that's equipping the new wells and the well fields with the infrastructure, including pumps, piping, electrical connections, and roads that can deliver that extra water to the transmission system. We will advertise for bids for that stage in December. In a nutshell, the Hickory Aquifer provides San Angelo the quickest, most reliable, and viable option available to ensuring our water needs are met if drought conditions do persist. But by no means does it represent the end of our efforts to secure a long-term water supply. We have teamed up with cities like Midland and Abilene to form the West Texas Water Partnership, a cooperative effort to deliver more water to our region. The thinking behind this arrangement is simple. Together, cities across the region can pool resources, mine efficiencies, and accomplish more than any one of us could on our own. We can't say much more about the effort other than we are strategically exploring every possible option and will be pursuing the best of those. At the same time, the City Council has expressed an interest in exploring groundwater sources beyond the reaches of the Hickory and in possibly recapturing and reusing treated effluent water, particularly on large landscapes such as our city parks, golf courses, and playing fields. Also, there is a keen interest in incentivizing water conservation efforts, be that xeriscaping your lawn, purchasing low-flow shower heads, or harvesting rainwater. While the City Council cringes at the notion of telling people what they can and cannot do, it's not above nudging citizens toward conservation. Speaking of which, we want to commend San Angelo for embracing conservation during the severe drought. Water usage is down dramatically this year. We see citizens practicing all manners of conservation and exemplary effort to stretch out our water supply, just as far as it can possibly go. We hope and believe this is cultivating a new mindset of conservation and preservation of a precious natural resource. Lastly, I'll say this about water. In weighing what can and should be done to fortify our water supply, it's important, I think, to strive for the same foresight San Angelo's city leaders showed in the 1970s when they acquired rights to the Hickory Aquifer, long before the community needed it, but right there when we did. In some ways, the water supply issue is intertwined with the increased activity we're witnessing from the exploration and development of the oil fields west of here. After all, if the oil field brings us more citizens, and we are convinced that it will, water will be among the city services we'll have to supply those additional folks. And if we're unable to do so, that failure could stunt the positive economic benefits of the boom, chiefly great paying jobs for a good many of our citizens. That said, I want to be clear. The city of San Angelo is not, and I repeat, is not selling water to drillers, frackers, water haulers, or any other oil field endeavor. Here's what we are doing though. First, we, along with our partners in the Chamber of Commerce and other governmental and political entities, are seeking to learn from the experiences and insights of other communities that have lived and are living through an oil boom. We have pored over the case study by Dr. Tom Tunstall of the University of Texas San Antonio. He produced on the impact of the Eagle Ford Shale on the South Texas communities. We have researched what's happened around the Bacon Shale in North Dakota. And we have dialogue with our peers in places such as Midland and Odessa, looking to glean any information or insight that will help us deal with the spectrum of challenges and opportunities that may arise. At the least, this has given us some level of comfort and confidence. As we talk with other communities, they are offering encouraging words about our efforts to gather information, to get out in front of the issues, and to address them in an orderly and controlled way, rather than simply waiting for come what may. Perhaps the chief concern to date revolves around housing. As many of you are, we are concerned about issues of affordability and availability of rental housing, and about adequate planning and development controls. There's no doubt the market is being impacted. Through June, home sales have jumped 42% year over year. The increase in the total dollar volume was even more staggering, a 60% spike. Because property valuations are set as of July 1st each year, we will not see a significant spike in the city's property tax roll for our coming fiscal year. However, that is likely to change next year. While we hear a lot of anecdotal evidence about rents increasing, we do not have any hard data on that. Still, we are looking to be proactive on that issue. Our Neighborhood and Family Services Department partners with Dr. Ken Stewart of Angelo State University on the San Angelo Rental Housing Mediation Services. That program addresses low and moderate income housing. The Neighborhood and Family Services Department is also pursuing even more initiatives that can aid such families. Further, the city formed 3 housing subcommittees to address single-family housing, multifamily housing, and RV parks and temporary workforce housing. Those subcommittees will soon present findings and recommendations to the Planning Commission and ultimately to the City Council. Sparked by Councilman Rodney Fleming, this council last week approved pursuing a moratorium on new RV parks and temporary workforce housing to ensure such developments do not infringe on residential housing or do not impede commercial development. It's reasonable to expect you'll see some decisions on that front very shortly. So what has the impact of the Klein Shell been to date? Well, that's hard to say. Obviously, there's something there. Sales tax receipts have improved year over year for 35 consecutive months and counting. Through May, sales tax collections were up 8% over last year's record high. Through June, our building permits office had issued nearly 69 million in permits, a 16% increase year over year. Hotel tax receipts also are at historic highs, just recently enjoying 29 straight months of year-over-year growth. Hotel occupancy rates still hover around 80%, but the average daily room rates in June swelled 32% year-over-year. While San Angelo's total number of unemployed and its unemployment rate were virtually unchanged in June, the total number of people employed was up nearly 1,000. Year-to-date through June, the number of people flying into San Angelo's regional airport was up nearly 1,400. And the number flying out of Mathis Field was up 1,100. Lastly, we have nearly 1,000 more water meters than we did a year ago. Combine all those figures with the number of guys in overalls and white pickups, trucks crowding restaurants and convenience stores, and it's fair to say something's afoot. How much bigger the boom will get is anyone's guess. We've all heard the Klein Show play will be mammoth, unlike anything West Texas and the prolific Permian Basin has ever experienced. Reportedly, the Klein Show it will dwarf the $25 billion economic impact, that's billion with a B, that the Eagle Ford Shale had in 20 South Texas counties, and that was for 2011 alone. The economic ripples from the Klein Show could swell into a figurative tidal wave, even compared to the sonic oil booms that shook West Texas in the 1970s and 1980s. At City Hall, we know an influx of people will strain virtually every service we provide, from public safety and infrastructure to development regulation and health services. Even our Parks and Recreation Department will be pressed to provide more to enhance the community's quality of life. The good news is that the boom brings the prosperity necessary to pay for increased needs and rising demands in services. I don't have to explain to this room, of course, that a rising tide of economic activity lifts all boats, including that of the city of San Angelo. More jobs and higher wages means the city will collect more sales tax revenue. In turn, San Angelo's municipal government will not have to be as reliant on property tax as it has been historically, which relieves some of the burden on residential and commercial property owners and increases opportunities for economic development. Consider this. Sales tax collections represent 32% of Odessa's revenue budget last year. The sales tax accounted for 33% of Midland's budget. San Angelo's sales tax made up a mere 24% of our total revenue budget. As a result, San Angelo must rely more heavily on its property tax. Since 2000, the property tax rate has been whittled from 86.83 cents down to 78.1 cents. Coupled with higher demand for housing, which will raise property values, more sales tax revenues will give the city council greater leeway in the future to address property tax rate reductions. At the same time, The increased tax revenue will allow San Angelo to invest in its infrastructure more substantially than it ever has before. In addition to the $1.3 million contract to replace cast iron water mains, last week the City Council awarded $1.7 million contract for seal coating streets. That represents a $1 million plus increase over the prior year's street maintenance program, nearly tripling what was budgeted in 2012. Still, San Angelo's most badly needed street reconstruction project, rebuilding Bell Street, would cost about $10 million alone. That's more than 5 times what the city's entire capital budget is this year, and that's at $1.75 million. If the city were to fund every project proposed in the 5-year capital improvement plan, the total cost would be some $450 million. That's nearly 3.5 times the city's entire annual operating budget of $134 million. While we expect the impact of the client show to be big, we know that it won't be that big. So we must be strategic about what we invest in and how. That process is already underway. The key goal is to institute a 7-year plan for maintaining every street in the city of San Angelo. We'll be moving toward that in the very near future. San Angelo is very fortunate to be on the edge, and we like to think of it on the cutting edge of the client shell boom. While our community will benefit from the economic growth the boom will surely yield, we will not be overwhelmed by it. Obviously, we desperately want our community to grow. We want good paying jobs, the kinds of jobs that will provide for families and will stymie the brain drain from Howard College and Angelo State University. Good, hardworking public servants on my staff and within the Chamber of Commerce hustle every day to achieve that. But frankly, we don't want economic success to come at the expense of our culture and of our quality of life. Our city council and city management have to be cognizant that San Angelo doesn't outgrow our infrastructure or our water supply or our public safety services. San Angelo doesn't want to become a boom town and then inevitably a bust town. We want our growth to be steady and sustained. That will require discipline and vigilant management. Before I close, I want to touch very briefly on 2 major community projects that are being aided by half-cent sales tax. If you haven't yet walked along the Concho River downtown, you must. The $16 million effort to improve the river, everything from dredging to bocce ball court, will be complete by September. Then go back and tour it at night under the lights. It is spectacular. If you want to know more, I commend to you a video our Public Information Office produced that is airing on SATV and on the city's YouTube channel. And we hope you'll come celebrate the Concho's resurrection during the River Fest, and that's our first River Fest in October 18th and 19th. Stay tuned for more details on that. And San Angelo Regional Airport's terminal renovation is about halfway complete. That's a $5.9 million project that our friends at the FAA are funding at a $5.1 million clip. The work should be substantially completed by April. When it's done, you'll notice a better flow of foot traffic, more space in areas such as baggage claim, beautiful aesthetics to match the concourse, and an overall greater customer experience. Photo albums of that project can be found on the city's Facebook page. Speaking of Mathis Field, last month I was among a group of 4 city officials that flew to SkyWest Airlines, the corporate offices in Utah, to make a pitch for 2 daily flights to Houston. SkyWest expressed a great deal of interest and will be discussing the possibility with United Airlines, which is SkyWest's partner carrier in Houston. We should know a decision by next spring, so it's very promising. Again, I felt tremendously blessed this last September when the City Council chose me to be your city manager. I feel that even more so today. I love San Angelo. My family loves San Angelo. I look forward to coming into work every single day to tackle the challenges and opportunities in the ways that will have a meaningful and long-lasting impact on our community. I humbly request your support and your assistance in those endeavors, because I truly want to be able to come before you year after year for many years to come and confidently assert that the state of the city is strong. Thank you.